Hello, welcome to WD80, the Watford fan channel. We're back for the first match reaction of the season. It started with a win. Watford won, Sheffield United 0 under the lights of the Vic on Monday night on Sky Sports. The list goes on. Dream start to the season for Watford and Rob Edwards, and we're going to be talking all about yesterday's game and performance here on the channel. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Sam Ucko. Now, Sam, you were living your best life yesterday, weren't you, in hospitality? I had a little look up. Normally, I see Luther looking over from the corner, but no, it was Sam Ucko with Charlie. Just talk us through, Sam. What was it like up there in the gods actually? Because it's higher than all the stands, isn't it? The view.
Yeah. So you're pretty much like if people can picture where the 1881 is, where the drum is, you're pretty much just above that.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the ground about 2-3 hours early, even before the players arrived. Nice 3-course meal to kick off the day. Absolutely beautiful, and going in at the end to celebrate a win with a cheese board with wine as well. So living the life. But do you know what? You can probably hear my voice is a bit throaty at the moment because I was still joining in with all the songs and everything, but. I did sort of at points yesterday. I was like, I wish I was in the Rookery. I wish I was really
surely after the goal when everyone was piling forward, weren't they? I was like, oh my god! Do you know what, Sam? When I was watching that, obviously I'm in the Upper Graham Taylor, and if anyone wants to see us at games, make sure you come and say hello, and we'll always have a chat. I had to look over. Obviously, I was going mental with my dad. I was like, yeah, get in. And then I kind of panned back, and I saw the advertising board going forward, and I was like, oh my god, people. Had been waiting so long to celebrate something like that because it has been that long, hasn't it, Sam? Yeah. Like we've been crying out for a win at home. I mean, it's been so long since we had a win at home. Actually, I'm trying to think our last win at home. It
was Man United on November the 20th. The game that got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer sacked. So since then, Man United have pretty much had 2 managers since then. Half a season has passed. And that was our first win at home. I think you're right there though, that I feel like when the ball went in, I very much feel that almost the fans sucked the ball into the net in a way. I feel like there was some desperation when the ball was going forward, that the fans just really sucked it into the back of the net. And it was almost like as soon as that happened, it was like a bubble burst over the Rookery, and everyone all of a sudden, just the outpour of emotions that have been building up really since that Man United game. And yeah, we scored the odd goal and celebrated the odd goal as well, but nothing like that, because there was a genuine belief that, I know it's early days and I'm not getting carried away, don't quote me on this, but it felt like Watford are back. This is the Watford that we love to watch, and these are the sorts of games that we enjoy going to. So absolutely brilliant, and performance was so far off it yesterday still, and there are still big improvements to be made, but it was just about getting that first win out of the way, getting the fans on side, and yeah, superb all round.
100%. We're going to get into that Watford performance in today's show. If you want to get involved, make sure you do leave your comments in the live chat. Thanks to everyone who's watching at the moment, and obviously if you're watching this back, no problem at all. Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and obviously don't forget to subscribe to WD18 if you haven't already. Sam, I wanted to take you back to the goal, and I think that's probably the place I want to start, because there was a moment before, and I love, this is one of my not guilty pleasures, but one of the things I absolutely love about football. When Sarr played the ball across to Pedro, before Pedro hit it, there was it was surreal actually. It was like a second of silence. I don't know if anyone watched it back on the highlights, but as Zhao was making contact with the ball, everyone's like, bang, erupted, and that stuff like that. Football cliches will appreciate that. That's like every time there's that sort of move where it goes across. And Sam, talking about the move, I mean, as first goals go to start the season, not too shabby.
And I was having a think actually about the best goals that we've scored on the counter attack that I can remember. I mean, we're excluding the Deeney goal against Leicester because it was nowhere near on that level, obviously. But yeah, I was thinking about, I know it's very different, but it sort of gave me the shades of Vidra away at Brighton in 2013. Yeah, nice. I remember him running from our own box and literally breaking from one side of the pitch to the other in a matter of seconds, really. Yes, there was a bit of luck involved. I think it was Fleck who slipped in the middle. I can't remember exactly for Sheffield United.
You're bang on with that, because with Fleck, because Kamara played the ball and he ran past it. And do you know what? Initially, as soon as I saw that, I was like, that wouldn't happen in the Prem.
Yeah.
And I think that was that. If we actually break down that move, while it was such a good move, the way we finished it off was lovely. I think actually that pass from Kamara gets cut out in the Prem 9 times out of 10. Whereas I think that it reminded me in the Championship that you do get those breaks sometimes.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think that's where I think that's one point. We'll touch on all the players later on. I think that was one thing about Kamara that slightly needs to improve in terms of the finishing touches. But as we say, we got a bit of luck that you probably wouldn't be getting in the Premier League. But as soon as the ball went to Sarr, I feel like we all knew what was going to happen. As I said at the top of the show, that the ball was sucked into the net, and as soon as Watford are in that position. And you got João Pedro in the middle. We've outnumbered the other team. We got the quality in that position. I think we all knew what was going to happen. And as you say, it was that collective moment of silence before the ball went into the net and absolute carnage at Vicarage Road. We missed those scenes and made it so much better that it was under the lights in front of the Sky cameras. Watching the video back as well. I don't know if anyone's watched the highlights back, but I love the way the video goes like almost straight over to the players before like sort of panning to the crowd. And it's like, wow, unbelievable.
Elite, absolutely elite. One of the best nights in terms of Championship nights. I can remember Vic. It was. I mean, even Rob said afterwards, the atmosphere was so good.
I think Dan Backman's been there now for what 3 years, and he said he put an Instagram post or a tweet up saying that was the best he's played in atmosphere-wise at Vicarage Road.
That was elite.
This is a lot.
Elite, absolutely elite. What fans the best. Louis, what a night. The Vic was buzzing 2 words. Get in. Very true in what for goal is ever shabby. Rob Edwards, what a man. You know what? We're going to go through some players. I've seen Kiembe get a shout out. I've seen some stuff about Sarr and obviously Dennis as well. And Calvin, I will touch my hair because João Pedro will win the golden boot if he stays at Watford. Look, Sam, do you know what? We'll go with the lineup first of all. We'll take it right back to the start. So Rob went with a 3-4-3. Which kind of out of possession kind of turned into a 5-2-3 with João also looking to drop in. So it's back. Oh, dog barking.
Dog's getting a bit excited over.
Yeah, I know. Unbelievable. Right, so in goal, Batman, and then back 3, Kabasele, Sierra, Cathcart, Kamara, obviously a left back, left wing back, playing right wing back. So in an unnatural position. Sema on the left, 2 midfielders are Cleverley and Kiembe. And then a front 3, and arguably, I think on paper, one of the best front 3s to ever actually play a Championship game. I'd go as far to say. I mean, it's a joke. Really. Pedro and Dennis. I mean, that's
a £75 million front line, £80 million front line to have in the Championship.
Yeah, and you know what, Sam? You could tell, couldn't you? Like the way Sheffield United, particularly, there was a lot of times we get opportunities in the transition, but Sheffield United's backline, they were looking to step off us. But Sam, just taking you back to the lineup, when you saw it come out, and I have to say, I couldn't really I knew what formation we were going to go with Rob because we'd seen the games in pre-season, but I kind of was a little bit not confused, but I was trying to work out which players he would go for. So was there any particular admissions into the lineup that you were surprised about or you didn't expect?
No, it's quite visionary from me. I put a tweet out in the morning predicting the lineup and got it bang on. So I'll take that. I was fully expecting that lineup with that front 3 playing. Rob was pretty adamant and even blunt in his press conference when speaking about whether Sarr and Dennis would play. He simply said yes. It was a question perhaps whether Tom Cleverley was going to be fully fit in time for the game, or whether, perhaps it could be Tom Daly in the middle, or Dan Gosling. And Tom Cleverley did play in the end. And I think, to be honest, with what we saw against Southampton, I think the back 5 picked itself. So I wasn't really surprised by the team, to be honest. And I did sort of roughly have a feeling for how he'd set up.
Yeah, agreed. Do you know what? This is the rule. I think we've got to touch on it. The rule of 11, Sam. So you can't name more than 11 overseas players, right, in the starting squad. So it kind of limits certain options. So for example, Okoye couldn't be on the bench. Hamer had to be on the bench, if I'm correct. I'm still a bit confused by it, to be honest. It's kind of like adapting to it. But Sam, like looking at in terms of the options we had off the bench as well. So Hamer, as we mentioned, Bayo, Esprit, Gosling, Manai, Troost-Ekong and Gakia. I have to say, again, bench-wise, it looks pretty strong from that regard. And, you bring in the likes of Deli Bashiru to come in. Obviously, we mentioned Okoye, another goalkeeper. We've got players to come in. And what did you make of in that respect? Because I had to remind myself the depth we do have. I think particularly at this level.
Yeah, definitely. And I was more thinking as well in terms of who was left out of the whole squad completely, who perhaps could be moving on, because a name that we haven't really heard of is Joe Hungbo's one. I could see him going out on loan again. I could see Matty Pollock going out on loan again. I think we said that the other day. I think he could go out on loan again. I think Domingos Keener could move on. I sort of forgot he played for us, to be honest, until the Southampton game, and that no involvement yesterday. I think he's one that could move on. But as you say, the likes of having Manai coming off, and I wasn't the biggest fan of him against Southampton, to be honest, but he came on and did a really good job holding the ball up. He had a good attempt, I think, which West Foderingham saved down to his left hand side. So yeah, definitely, the depth we've got on the bench is really good, and it's a match for any team in the Championship, if not better.
Yeah, agreed. Look, Ellis says in the comment section, it was probably the strongest starting 11 we could have put out. Maybe lose it for Klebs or Kiembe. Now, Sam, we'll talk through that first half just initially. We mentioned off air, didn't we, that I particularly, you actually, you know what, Sam, before you said that, before we get into the first half performance, you were someone who would have taken a draw right before the game. Because I saw there was quite a lot of people interacting with that tweet saying, no, we've got to be going in to win it. And some people say, look, as long as the performance is good, I'll take a point. So what was your thinking going into yesterday? Because I was certainly of the opinion that I think it is a game we probably should win. I think Sheffield United will probably be around there this season. But, I look at our team and I think, you know what, this is, we should be winning this. But I think for me, Sam, it was more about the performance. So what was the thinking behind that tweet anyway?
Yeah, so my thought process was, look, Rob Edwards has, first of all, two players at his disposal that he didn't think he'd have in Sarr and Emmanuel Dennis. So automatically, the week before the game changes, his thinking is going to change. Tactically, things are going to change. What we've worked on pre-season, some of it might not be applicable. So there's that. B, there's Rob Edwards settling in his first game in the Championship. We also have the fact that Sheffield United are a really, really good side. Paul Heckingbottom's a really good manager. Momentum at the back of last season, albeit losing in the playoffs, and they will be up there. I think they'll go up automatically, Sheffield United, to be honest with you. I think they do need to improve massively off yesterday, but I do think that really, really good team. So for that, I was thinking, look, at any other point in the season, I think if we were at home against them in a relatively comfortable position, I think we would have taken a point, to be honest with you. I think it's just the fact that we hadn't won at home in a while, and the expectations were relatively high going into this season, that people went, yeah, we need to win this, or it's not good enough, which is completely fair enough, because I think on reflection yesterday with the way that we played, I think we probably deserved to win it. And if we drew the game, I think it would have been really disappointing, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in terms of first 15 minutes, atmosphere was great, but I felt like it was a game where we grew into it. I think the biggest thing for me between the first half and the second half was actually the midfield, and something we'll get into, but I think second half, what we did much better, we bypassed the midfield a lot easier, and we just said, look, we need to get it to the front three and let them do the rest. Whereas I felt in the first half, we were trying to play through the thirds too much, potentially. And I don't think it was that sort of game, because obviously Sheffield United had that extra man in midfield, John Fleck, Sander Berg, etc. They were getting that extra man. You could tell Cleverley and Kiembe were struggling is maybe a stretch, but they were finding it tough to get a grip, I think, on the tempo of the game. Whereas personally, Sam, second half, I felt that that's what we did a lot better. We almost said, look, Cathcart, go straight to Dennis, or Kabasele, go straight to Saul, rather than looking to play through. So what was the differences between the two halves? Because I thought we were decent in the first half, but I think the performance level definitely improved second.
Yeah, I think we sort of experienced, this is no disrespect to Rob Edwards at all, we experienced something that we sort of saw under Ivic, where I think there was no transition between the midfield and the attack. I think when Cleverley and Kiembe, you said they weren't perhaps struggling. I really thought particularly Tom Cleverley struggled in that first half. I think they looked leggy, and I think they really failed to get a grip of the ball. They both improved as the game went on, but the first half pretty much non-existent. And I think what we really struggled to do is pick up the ball in midfield and get it out to Sarr, Dennis and João Pedro. As you say, at half-time, I think what happened was Rob said to the defenders and the fullbacks, look, just get it forward straight away. Let's leave out the midfield. And we looked so much better because A, on the counter-attack, we're devastating. And B, it just allowed sort of Sarr and Dennis to actually get into the game a lot more. And obviously, João Pedro scored his goal as well from due to the work of Ismail Assar. So, yeah, definitely, what I quite liked was that tactical tweak from Rob Edwards showed a real maturity, that he's not afraid to change things in game if we need to. Personnel, didn't change till quite late on, but in terms of what we were going to do with the ball, he changed it, and ultimately that won us the game.
Yeah, do you know what, Sam? Let's get into the midfield, and I agree with you because he made it. That was the right change for me to go more direct, particularly that back line, because every time in the first half we were getting it into the front three. No, they were just causing so many problems that you felt that it was almost inevitable we were going to score at some point, and especially on the transition, we were getting a lot of joy, particularly in both halves actually. But I think first half. I think overall the midfield for me just seemed to, it might just be the fact that it was the first game, but I'd actually argue you're probably freshest on the first game. But we just seemed to lack some legs and quality in central areas. Now, I don't know whether that was because Sheffield United had that extra man, but I felt like a lot of the time we were kind of just a yard off it. And Cleverley for me was the weak link in that respect. I felt a bit sorry for Kiembe actually, because I felt that he was having to do two jobs because Cleverley was off it. What did he? Yeah, Cleverley's coming for a little bit little bit of stick in terms of his performance yesterday, but I have to say I thought he looked leggy. I think it's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I think that's the best word for it. I think you say in terms of being fresh at the start of the season, I think it's easy to forget that Tom Cleverley was very touch and go whether he start the game. He was injured towards the end of pre-season and had to play in the under-23s game midweek. As well, and where Rob Edwards was at the game, so we could see whether Cleverley would be all right. So I think in that respect, I think that's where probably the legginess comes from. Look, I'm one of Tom Cleverley's biggest fans. I absolutely love him. In my lifetime supporting Watford, he's probably one of my favourite players I've ever watched. I think he's past it, to be honest with you, in terms of as a starter. I think he's someone who could definitely have a role in the squad, coming off the bench for the last 10-15 minutes and chasing the ball down. But in terms of starting the game against the likes of Sanderberger and John Fleck, I don't think he ever really stood a chance, to be honest with you. And it's the same sort of cracks that we're seeing in his game from last season. And I don't think perhaps with his age and his injury record that we're likely to see those sorts of cracks being eradicated from his game. So it's a really difficult one. It's not me saying Cleverley's got no part to play this season, because he certainly does as a club captain. But when Imran loses back, I think he's the one who should come in for Tom Cleverley.
Yeah, I think Loser has to walk into the team just based on quality. To play devil's advocate, Sam, I agree with you in terms of yesterday. He looked leggy. I guess in his defence, I don't think he was 100% fit. I also think the dilemma that Edwards has now is the fact that he's now been named captain means that I'd almost assume that he's going to play at probably 60% of the games this season. Obviously, at times we're going to have to rotate. I don't know if he was fit enough to start yesterday. Personally, I looked at his performance and thought, could Dan Gosling have done a better job? And I think he probably could have. And I think, as I said, Loser will probably come in that respect. Moving on to other players. On a different note, who particularly impressed you? Because Zhao was given man of the match. Dennis could have been quite easily man of the match. Who are the players that really stood out to you yesterday, Sam, in the opening game?
I'm going to give a surprise name here, and it's not by no means man of the match, but I was really impressed with Ken Sema. I thought he was absolutely brilliant yesterday, to be honest with you. Okay. I think it's a bit of a weird one because I think he's one of the most left-footed players I've ever seen play for Watford. I've never seen him use his right foot. And I think what defenders try and do is keep him on his left foot. And you think, well, he's not going to get past them, is he? If they're keeping him on his right foot. But he seems to get past them every single time. His set pieces need to improve. That's one thing that has to improve in his game. But on the whole, I thought, he's up and down that left-hand side really, really, he was really strong down that left-hand side and was, a real nuisance for the Sheffield United defenders as well. So I thought he did really well and probably not going to be a starter when either Ethan Laird or Mario Gaspar start a right wing back and Kamara goes to the left. But he's a really good understudy to have it in the Championship. And elsewhere, I was really impressed by Sierralta. I know some people are saying Kabasele, who I thought did okay. At times, a couple of lapses in concentration again, I think, and his distribution as well was poor. But I thought Sierralta was brilliant. Won most things in the air, was really comfortable on the ball, and had whoever was up front for Sheffield United in his back pocket. So those were the two that impressed me aside from the front three.
Yeah, I mean the front three, Sam, it's it's a joke, to be honest, that they're playing in the Championship. I was saying to a few guys at work today, like, Dennis could be playing for a top 10 team. Pedro could be playing for a top 10 team. Sarr, when he's at his best, is a top 10 player in the Prem, or top half player anyway. And I kind of had this realization yesterday that, if we kept, which is unlikely, but if we kept hold of all three, we are in for such a fun season, because I genuinely think the goals those three could get against, I look at Sheffield United's defence yesterday, and I don't think that's a poor Championship defence by any stretch. I think that's one of the better defences in the Championship for me. And when I look at it on paper, and those three were just causing so many problems that, at times they were just. How many tactical fouls did you see, particularly in the first half? The ref was missing a couple as well. Shirts being pulled, tactical fouls. They were just doing anything to stop them. And I think the great thing about Dennis in particular is the yards he makes, not only without the ball but with the ball, is just frightening, because going forward he pins defences back. And when you add Sarr into the mix, when he's running in behind, and even Zhao has got the ability to drop deep or play on the last man, I just think the balance of that three, Sam, is almost perfect for the level. And I think also, just to say, and credit to Rob, because he's managed that situation really, really well with Dennis and Sarr, because I think we all knew going into the window that they didn't go to Austria, obviously. They were at home, obviously, with the transfer speculation, and that could have quite easily gone sour. But Dennis said in his post-match comments about how he's a great guy and he wanted to do well for the manager. And to get a buy-in from a player who, I think, if the right offer came in, would leave, is actually says a lot about Rob's man management style. And it is early days, and I don't think the whole three will stay. I think it will probably be Dennis who moves on. But I just think to get those guys playing like the way they did yesterday, I think it's a great reflection of Rob. And if they, as I said, Sam, if they stayed, right, we'd be just. The amount of goals we'd score, I think, would be a joke.
Yeah, I think if they stay, then surely we're the favourites to win the league at that point, aren't we? That front three would be absolutely ridiculous in the Championship. I think, as you say, a lot of the credit has to go down to Rob Edwards with it, for the way that he's handled the situation, the way that he's integrated them back in, seemingly without upsetting too many people as well. Manai came on yesterday and gave us all completely, and didn't really look like he was, some players would probably take it to heart that they weren't starting after being brought in, but Manai was really, really good. But I think back to games last season, and I look at Leeds at home and we lost 3-0, and Brentford at home and we lost 2-1. And I remember thinking those three just didn't look like they wanted to play to each other, that they just were refusing to pass to each other, and they looked really unhappy. But what Rob's done in what must have been a really short space of time, only a couple of weeks, he's transformed them and made them look like they're enjoying their football again. Something a lot of people were saying were it's the first time in a while that Sarr actually smiled while playing football, and I think that goes a long way. He looked like he really enjoyed himself yesterday. The front three fed off each other really well, particularly in the second half, and we're in for a fun season if we can keep hold of them.
Oh, I'm just praying. I just can't see. I think Dennis is going to get an offer. I just think there's going to be a 2025. I think I said to you, Sam, didn't I? I could see Everton on the final day chucking 25 million down.
Yeah, I think the later it gets in the window.
Sorry, just TH says front three are playing into a big audience of managers last night, guys. As well. Very good point. Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think the later it gets in the window, I think the more likely it is that particularly Emmanuel Dennis will move on. I think what it seems to me, what it looks like, is other clubs have other targets. And if they don't get those targets, then they'll go in for the likes of Dennis and Sarr. So, for example, the Italian striker that West Ham just signed, I can't remember his name. But if they didn't get him, then I imagine they would have gone in for someone like Dennis instead.
Oh, Salamakers.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
This is the thing. The latest rumours today, I don't know if you guys saw it, was that Leeds are the latest team to show interest in Sarr, but Watford have put a 35 million euro price tag, apparently, according to rumours in France. So a couple of Italian teams were priced out of a move for him. I don't know whether the option to Udinese has been looked at, because obviously we obviously know what that relationship's like. I don't know. Ellis has kind of confirms your point as well, Sam. Goes to show the damage Roy and Claudio did to the dressing room. It is quite frightening to see, players who would leave Watford actually want. I know, as a couple of guys have said, that they want to be playing not only for themselves but kind of their brand and etc. And how they want to appear to other managers and play and get interest. But I I think that actually just does show, like last season, how many times did we go to games and like look at those three and think they just don't like each other? I used to like watch them go, no, they just don't want to play.
Yeah, 100%. All Rob Edwards there. That's where the credit for Rob has to go, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Right, so moving on to some other performance. So we mentioned the front three. Another one, as you mentioned, the back three. So this is an interesting one in the back three. I like to hear what people think in the comments. I'm a little bit torn on it because I think we still need that left centre back. I think the problem with playing Cathcart at left centre back, and this is nothing against Craig, but he's a great guy to fill in. I don't think he's a guy that you go, you're going to play left centre back for the season, because I mean, even last season he was playing right centre back, left centre back, right back. Do you remember at one point he's playing right back?
Yeah.
Yesterday he's playing left centre back. I think he's an absolutely great player in this championship to be filling in positions. I don't know if he's great for that position over the course of the season. I think he's, again, a great player to have in the squad and a great player that we'll need this season over 20, 25 games, 30 games. And obviously, from what we hear, personality-wise, top stuff in the dressing room. But Sam, I think actually having a player and the way Rob wants to play, of driving out the ball on their left foot, I think it just opens so many more channels of the way we can attack.
It's a really interesting one because I'm a massive fan of Cathcart, and for me, he has to be starting this season. I think we have to find a role for him. I didn't think he really put a foot wrong yesterday, to be honest. I think I get the idea of perhaps a player, bringing it out with his feet a bit more from the back, and I think someone like Mario Gaspar will do that when the fullbacks are slightly more comfortable. Someone more natural in the left wing back and more right wing back roles than Sema and Kamara. I think we'll see that a lot more, and it will be a lot better, a lot cleaner to watch. But Craig Cathcart starts for me. I think he's been crucial in both promotions over the last few years, and his leadership on the pitch is key. And as you say, in the squad, he's a really popular player. So it's interesting to see what everyone in the comments think. But I think Cathcart's a starter. I
guess the question for me, Sam, is if he's a starter for you, who does he replace? Because I think the club, from what we're reading, from Andrew French, the club are looking at a left centre back. It's going to be a homegrown option. I think that's going to be someone who comes straight in. I think that's almost a given. So what's the back three for you? Because the only thing I think and this is actually less to do with Cathcart, it's more to do with just him being a right fit centre back. I think it does just make us unbalanced personally. When I look at the back five, we'll come up against teams who will look to press us a bit more. And I'm not sure if we could break the press with we currently having a right centre back at left centre back. It's okay for me in a couple of games, might get away with it, but I think over the course of the season, I'm not sure. I think that's why we need that left centre back for me.
Yeah, do you know what? It's a good problem to have. It's been quite a while since we've been thinking, well, who's going to start at the back for Watford? Because normally there hasn't been enough options to even consider it. Yeah, look, it's a good question, but a lot of it relies on sort of ifs and who's in terms of who comes in at left centre back. We have to bear in mind as well, as you say, he's a really good squad player. It's a 46 game long season. It's unlikely Gaspar will play all of those games as well at his age, but with his legs adapting to English football. The same goes for Cathcart as well, to be fair. So I don't think it's a question of that, and I think it will probably be a rotation between all of them, to be honest.
Sure. And I don't know if you saw Mario Gaspar at the game yesterday. I don't know if anyone follows him on Instagram. He was in the Elton John stand lapping it up.
No.
Interesting to see where he'll fit in, actually. Because I've seen people say, Rob's kind of referred to him as not a flyer of a right back, but more of a kind of, but great going both ways. Whereas I think Ethan Laird would be, a really aggressive right wing back, which I think would suit Rob perfectly as well. But I would be surprised if I saw Gaspar as a right centre back.
I think that's where he's going to fit in, to be honest with you. I don't really, with Ethan Laird coming in the way that Rob wants to play, in terms of bombing up and down that right-hand side, like we saw from Kamara yesterday, who did a brilliant job filling in, and like we saw from Sema on the other side as well. I think Ethan Laird will be that player, but I think what Gaspar will offer is, solidity defensively, someone who can bring the ball out from the back as well using his feet. In terms of what you said, with perhaps Craig Cathcart's limitations, I think Gaspar can offer us that. So I think he'll fit in a right centre back, to be honest.
You know what? I think you made a good point there, Sam. It's not for me that this is an at Cathcart. This is just for me having a right centre back at left centre back. I just think that I think that's why we need to bring in someone. But let's have a look at your comments. So Adam says a back three of new left centre back, Sierra out and Cavaselli would be great. Cab had a cracking game, I agree, and his stats were phenomenal and still has plenty of pace. Chris says Sierra was outstanding, just adds to the question of what happened to him last year. Chris says, again, he was okay. Cathcart was okay defensively. For me, Sema brought him into the game a lot, but on the ball, he's poor. Simir looks to be off. S. Wright, Matt Clark is the replacement from, I think it's Brighton, another homegrown option. Sam, one other position which people are talking about from yesterday. You say, this is, I think Rob will even admit it, that wasn't, I think we could play a lot better than we did yesterday. I thought we were great going forward, but as we mentioned in midfield, we can move a bit better. But the right wing back situation, I thought Kamara did really well actually at right wing back, considering he's a predominantly left-footed player playing out of position. It was the Sheffield United play didn't really try to isolate him on his right foot. Whether that was Kamara playing, really well, or them maybe not doing their research properly, but a lot of the times he was allowed to cut in onto his left, and defensively he was good. And I think that's his first win at Vicarage Road, which is
his first win at Vicarage Road. Ridiculous,
crazy, isn't it? And that's why he's going crazy at full time. But I guess again, there's the same question to you about that right wing back spot, right? What happens to Kamara? Does he then go to the left? Does he? What happens there? Because he played well last night, but Ken also played really well. So
as I say, I think Ken Sem is sticking around because I'm sure he had an option to leave, perhaps do Udinese or something. I think he probably has to accept that he's going to be a backup player. He's probably going to be, I don't want to say a fringe player because I think he's got a role to play this season, particularly when we're seeing out games. I think he can do a job. But I think, Kamara winning player of the season last season at left wing back. Yes, he did a brilliant job at right wing back last night, but he still looked a tiny bit uncomfortable at points where he's having to shift the ball onto his left foot. So I think, it's relatively straightforward that you move Kamara straight over to the left and bring in the new right back straight away. But again, a bit like Cathcart, that's nothing against Ken Sema, a brilliant player, a brilliant performance yesterday, and he's someone who will offer us something this season.
Sure. I think it's also important to remember from my perspective that I'd say we're a few weeks away from seeing our general team for the season, because I think with the amount of games early on and with it being in the transfer window, there's going to be changes, obviously. And I think, I don't know if we'll get a clear idea maybe until the end of August for me. I think when there's still the transfer window going on and there's still players potentially leaving and coming in, I don't know. I think at the minute, whilst that front three looks great on paper, and we've got players kind of filling in holes at the minute, I don't know whether I can maybe fully judge the team until I start to see maybe a consistency, Sam, if that makes sense, with the lineups Rob's going with.
Yeah, and I think particularly with the front three, the questions are going to be going until deadline day. If we're being honest, in terms of where Sarr, Dennis might go. I think Pedro's probably safe in terms of staying. I think he'll be here this season, but I don't think we're going to see sort of Rob's best team. I think he's still going to be trying things out. Again, we're going to have that new right wing back coming in. I think we're going to have Kamara going back over to the left. As we've said already, there are so many combinations he can try out at the back. We've got Imran Loser coming back in, so it's really difficult to call what the team will be. We got I think 6 games now until the window shuts, and I don't want to be that person to predict what that team will be because it is close to impossible, I think.
It's tough. And as Esra says, if everyone wants to limit to 11 non-homegrown players, we have to move some on, unfortunately, some on loan. As we mentioned at the top of the show about some of the names potentially that could be going out on loan this season to get game time. Mike Duffy from Voice of the Vic. If you haven't checked out the Voice of the Vic podcast, make sure you go and give those guys a listen. Absolutely top stuff. Evening chaps, evening May, what a win. I hope you're both doing well. Some throwback with the Watford trading top, bringing Tom Aldred vibes. I think this is 10-11. Cheers, mate. 10-11. I wear it at the gym and I see a few people glancing over going, yeah, he's love it. At 2010 vibes. You know what? I think this was Troy's first season. I think this was so. It was. I think it was because I remember the I don't know if can someone confirm me on this, but I think this is 10-11, and I think it was Norwich away in the first game of the season.
Yeah, we had the AC Milan Watford kit that day.
Oh, love it. Sam, you got a question here, by the way. Dan Brown, Sam, you're going to drop that video of the Rookery Carnage. I think I saw you taking one.
I did. I got a couple of good pictures of the Rookery. As I said, up in the gods last night. It was difficult for me to join in with the scenes, but it looked unbelievable. So I thought I'd take a couple of photos. But I've got a couple up on my Twitter if you want to have a look, and I had a good one as well with Kamara celebrating at full time. If you want to go and have a look over there.
So good from you. And also, Sam managed to get a signed program from the match winner, João Pedro. And if you want to get involved with that giveaway, which we're giving away on Friday, if you want to get involved, make sure you check out. I'm going to put the tweet in the live chat, and all you've got to do is follow us on Twitter and retweet the tweet to enter the giveaway. So make sure you go and do that if you'd like to win or have a chance of winning a signed João Pedro shirt. Sam, I just wanted to touch on the most pleasing aspects of performance yesterday. So obviously we don't want to get we kind of mentioned that we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, and these are the things that we want to see change. So as we say, maybe a little bit unbalanced in certain positions, but that can be rectified. But from your perspective, what were the most positive aspects from yesterday's performance? Was it just solely the front three, or was it the collective performance of everyone?
The collective performance, I think, because particularly there were stages in the first half where it became really scrappy and the front three didn't have too much involvement during the game. And I think it was that middle part of the game, probably the last 10 minutes of the first half, where João Pedro had a good chance from a header, which he probably should have scored, I think. And then obviously going up to the goal. But then after that, I think defensively, with the ref added on 6-7 minutes at the end, I think that was almost a collective sigh in Vicarage Road, where people thought, here we go again now. Sheffield United were putting balls into the box, and it did look a bit, you could cut the tension in the air, I think. And I think the fans did really well to get behind the players there and drag them over the line. But what I was really pleased with was, I think the players showed, I'll bring back the Troy Deeney quote there, our players showed cojones yesterday, I think. They really showed sort of the grit and the guts that we didn't really see too much last season. And that all came from Rob Edwards. I think the fact that, we have a manager who we're connecting with already gave a lift to the crowd. The crowd were able to get behind the players, and the players were able to give back to us. And when the full-time whistle went, you could really see the unity and how, sort of everyone was together in that. And I think, by the end of the game, I think you could really see, I think some of the players looked absolutely exhausted because of the way that they dug in. It's going to be one of the more, one of the tougher games of the Championship season. As I say, I think Sheffield United will go up this season. So the fact that we managed to get the 3 points is absolutely huge. And that was the biggest positive for me yesterday.
On Rob's positivity, Caroline thinks it'll be the difference this season. Last season was so negative on and off the pitch. It is so refreshing to have a manager who wants to be in the job, first of all, clearly, wants to do well for the football club, wants to do well for the players, clearly has a rapport with the squad already. The fans seem to be buying into what he's trying to do and are willing to give him time. It's a good place to be in, I have to say, for a long time. It's nice to go to games actually wanting. We always want Watford to do well, but I think there was times last season where I went to games and it was like a chore, and I know a lot of Watford fans are feeling the same way. This time, and I think this is why yesterday was so important in setting the tone. We had a 1-0 win, we had a clean sheet, we had one of our best, arguably our best young player scoring the winner. The atmosphere was one of the best I've experienced as a Watford fan. I mean, confidence-wise, it's going to do so much good. Rob spoke so well afterwards. Even the way up full time, he was hugging everyone. And could you imagine that last season? Obviously with Xisco, but with the other two managers, with Ranieri and Hodgson, which wouldn't have happened. So it is, for me, Sam, it's just so refreshing to go to games and actually feel Definitely. That. Do you know what that feeling like? And we've obviously met Rob, but you just want him to do well, and you want the team to do well.
Yeah.
And that is just such a nice feeling for me.
Yeah, I'm just so desperate for Rob to do well and to have time. It's almost like you mentioned last season being a chore to go to games and having to get up on a Saturday morning and going, here we go again, and seeing us lose 2-1 in the last minute for the 5th week in a row or whatever it was. And it's really weird because it's almost like I wake up this morning and go, how many days till the West Brom game? I could play West Brom tonight, to be honest with you, and watch us again. And it's like, I know last night wasn't the best performance, but as well, another real positive. I think you can see the direction we want to go in. There's a clear plan there. There's a clear shape. The players know exactly what they have to be doing. And yes, it's probably going to take probably 4 or 5 games for us to really get to grips with it. Even until the end of the transfer window and players coming in, it will take time. But as long as there's a clear plan there, as long as the effort's there, performance is there, grit is there, I think all Watford fans are going to be happy, and it's a brilliant start to the season.
Absolutely, mate. And I think Dan makes a fantastic point. And we mentioned at the top of the show, when was the last time we had a home win? It was obviously Man United at home. But I think it was important to break the run of form at home as well. Curse lifted straight away, absolutely. Because I think the longer that had gone on, people would have been like, oh, no, is this ever going to end? And then the pressure really starts to build on that. And I think just to get that first win under our belt on TV, the pressure was on, really. Like, the pressure was more on Watford than it was on Sheffield United, put it that way. You recently relegated side with still Dennis, Sarr, Pedro. You look at that front three, Rob's first game. You know, the pressure was on. And to be fair, we turned up. So I'm so happy with the performance. Matt says, loving Rob Edwards already. I knew during training sessions before the season started, he wanted to make sure he had the chance to have one-on-one chats with each player to get to know them properly. Absolutely. I completely agree. And that was one of the big things he mentioned in the interview he did with us about getting to know the players as people, which is again, so refreshing. Rudy, so good to see you, mate. Yesterday at the match, the atmosphere was amazing. We need that throughout the season. Absolutely, Rudy.
Can I just say as well, I think a small thing and small touches, I know this isn't in the club's control necessarily. I think it made such a big difference having the game under the lights as well. I don't know what it was. I just think at Vicarage Road, when there's a game under the lights, I just think it's almost like something there's like a switch with the fans, I think. And it's almost like, you know, something, you know, the stakes are lifted that tiny bit more. And I know we've spoken about how difficult the first 3 games are. Obviously, last night, then we got West Brom and then Burnley at home. All 3 of those games are under the lights. So I think, you know, that, if anything, is going to work in our favour.
I also think, I agree with you, Sam. I also think the fact that we had to wait till Monday meant that we were like, we saw everyone else play and we were like, I mean, I went to the game thinking, I'm so up for this now because I've waited all weekend to watch us. Literally the last game on the opening day of the season, right? Or opening weekend of the season, and we're seeing our team play. It was, that was so good. Hats off to every Watford fan that went yesterday. Sam, I think the biggest thing is going into next week, another Monday night away at West Brom. Are you going? I can't make it, but are you going, Sam?
I am going, yeah.
I'm going Birmingham away, by the way.
Good stuff. That's sold out today, by the way. Top effort on a Tuesday night. Brilliant.
So good. Sam, what do we need to take going into? So if you're Rob Edwards now, you've processed yesterday's game, you processed your first win. What do you reckon he's taken away from that opening day performance?
I think he'll take massive confidence from it. I think that the basics were mastered really well. I think that the finer details and the sort of the smaller technicalities will probably need to be improved massively, and they'll work on that in training. But I think the main thing he'll take from that is the players are going to be up for it now. They're going to be confident. I say I want the West Brom game to happen tomorrow. I think the players will probably feel the same. They're just going to want to get back out there, enjoy their football, score some goals, and really get stuck in again. So I think that's the main thing that I'll take from it. The players are confident. The players look up for it. The tactical stuff can come later. But as long as we can build on that sort of good feeling that we haven't had in a long time, I think we're in for a good season.
Yeah, agreed. I think the signs are there. The signs there that they've worked on patterns of play, particularly going forward over pre-season and defensively as well. Like the foundations a clean sheet brings at home. It's great. A win at home, so good. And also to have, like, as I said, our best young player getting the match winner and putting in such a good performance. Like, if you actually looked at his touch map, I mean, Sky released it and we posted it on our socials, but he was absolutely everywhere. And I think what epitomised his performance so well... Oh, there we go. I was just getting out. What epitomised his performance so well, Zhao, was there was one point, I think it was the counter-attack that Sheffield United had, and I think Ndai had a shot saved by Batman. But Zhao's work rate to like track back from the final third of the pitch into his own third was like, I think Zhao would have done that last season, but like the intensity he was doing that at was like,
he's got even bigger as well. He's got even stronger. Just seems every single summer now he's just putting on the muscle, and he's really growing into his body. I know when we signed him, how old was he? 17, 18 years old, and now he's really grown into his body, and he really looks the real deal. And I'm sort of worried because I don't think he'll go this season, but I feel like he's the one that clubs are going to be watching now, thinking, oh, if Watford don't go up next season, he's the one we could go in for. So such a positive, bright future. You know, you can criticise the Pozzos as much as you want. We're not going to get into it now, but there's no arguing that he sort of embodies what the Pozzo model sort of can do in terms of buying a player for cheap, developing them and selling them on for more. So let's not talk about selling João, because hopefully it's not this window, but really big season for him.
That really doesn't go. And also, the second thing to say is a guy who's played in the Championship before was brilliant. And this is his second season. I think, you know, hopefully that's, again, set the tone, as I keep saying, set the tone for this season. But it is the first game of the season. We've started with a win, the best possible way to start. 1-0 win, a clean sheet, under the lights of the Vic. Doesn't get much better than that. Always believe in João Pedro. Love it. Sam, we'll be back maybe next Tuesday. Obviously, we've got another match reaction. We're going to do these after each game this season, guys. Sam's hosting Twitter Spaces preview. So our previews aren't going to live on YouTube this season. They're going to be living on Twitter. So that gives you the opportunity to kind of give your thoughts on the last game and then look ahead to the next game and what you think about the club at the moment. And Sam will be hosting those. Sam, is there like a particular time each week that people can kind of tune in for?
Yeah, so it's going to be probably the day or 2 days before each game, probably at 1 or 2 o'clock, depending on what's going on. But really exciting edition we've got coming up this week. We've got Charlie Zazera, obviously the king of Watford Twitter Spaces, coming on this week. We also have a representative from West Brom Fan TV as well to talk to us a bit about what we can expect from West Brom. And just a reminder as well, while we're on our Twitter, as we said earlier, go over, retweet, follow us, and you've got a chance of winning that signed João Pedro match programme.
Oh, mate, absolutely love it. Sam, top work. Thanks so much to everyone who watched today. Over 125 of you live, which is absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate the kind comments coming in. Really, really great stuff. And hope you had a fantastic night yesterday. What a way to start the season. Good times. And hopefully, if you see, I can't make West Brom away, but if you see Sam or you see us at games, make sure you come and say hello. We always love to come and have a chat. And yeah. Up the Hornets.
Up the Hornets.
Up to what starts of the season. Take care, guys. See you soon.